Rage has reduced parts of London, Tottenham and Brixton to burning wreckage and reminiscent of the Blitz in World War Two. You only needed to see the images of firefighters putting out burning Victorian buildings to see how low we've sunk. Now, this all started because of the shooting of Mark Duggan, as I'm sure you're aware. But it may have happened in an exchange of fire from the police's point of view. This is what they've said. Well, Mark Duggan may have opened fire on the police and the police marksman responded. But the ballistic report, according to the Daily Mail, which I do not rate as a credible source of information, has said that it may be a police bullet in the radio. Now, I do not believe the police would either stand there, which would be completely ridiculous, or put their radio down on the floor and shoot at their own radio, risking a ricochet which could have killed themselves after the shooting of Mark Duggan, or if their radio did fall down on the ground during a scuffle with Mark Duggan, that they would have been lacking in marksmanship so much as to shoot their own radio during the scuffle or attempt at arresting Mark Duggan. But all of this, the actual facts, have been lost in the riot because it no longer matters about whether Mark Duggan exchanged fire with the police or not. He was a criminal. He had a reputation of being a criminal and was known to the police. But the perception is that the police killed him in an execution type, execution type situation. Now, I do not believe that. But if people who did the riot believe that, and Mr. Duggan's family have said they did not orchestrate the riot, then whether it is true, a conspiracy theory or an excuse, that is what motivated people to do the riot. But what I'm trying to get at is perceptions. And people look through the perceptions of their own and prisms of their own personal experience. Alright? If you live in a community, whether you're white, black, English, Scottish, Irish, Turkish, Jamaican or African, or any other ethnicity, and you are in a situation where you see the police as a foreign invading force, which is often the case in places which do not have a history of race relations, such as Brixton, because of course of the Brixton riots in 1981, and also where PC Blakelock was hacked to death on the Broadwall farm estate near Tottenham. Well, all of these things you have to see, as you would expect me to say, some racial element to it. But I would say the opposite actually, because there were English people, Turkish people, East Europeans, black people of Afro-Caribbean and African extraction two communities which do not usually get along, and they were all in the riot. But this does not explain something that a multiculturalist said from the Muslim community on BBC London South East. She said it was a societal problem and that people had lost faith in the institutions because bankers and police had stolen money or taken backhanders, and that there was a lot of deprivation in Tottenham, and that she said there's been a lot of influx of new people into the area, whereas the community in Tottenham used to be mostly Afro-Caribbean. Now, to me, this doesn't make any sense. Were things perfect when the Afro-Caribbean community was there? Obviously not. There has always been crime in North London, in Hoxton. It's Hoxton and other places before the inflow of immigration from the Caribbean, had inflows of immigration from Ireland and Scotland. If anyone's read Lenny McLean's book on the subject, and it was notorious for its own indigenous English organised crime groups. Well, the inflow of people from war-torn situations has might have a point to it. These people might be psychologically traumatized. Let's take that view from the multiculturalists. But the hypocrisy of it is only explained when you look at the actual situation. Here you've got people articulating primitivism and violence through the use of Twitter and their phone books and Facebook to use primitive violence and opportunistic looting. People as young as 7. So there is not a culture of law and order in that particular anti-society. It is an atomistic society. And the people that she's talking about who did the looting, she admitted, the multiculturalists admitted that they might not be political animals. So if they're not political animals, how would they be aware of the financial crisis, and how could that be a motivation for the riot? You know, because it was the financial crisis which was caused by bankers stealing money. Okay, so it wasn't that. Okay, and the difference between the multiculturalist argument on that and what the BNP are going to have a field day about this and use it to their own advantage to harm race relations in this country. You know, we need to take a strong line with these people who did this riot, and we need to deport people who, whether they're English or any other ethnicity, who did the rioting. Because if you break the social contract, if you go against social democracy, we're not going to invest in those communities. There's no incentive to. If you complain about poor public services and then you burn those public services down, what's the incentive of the state and the nation to invest more money? You've made people, if you're talking about inequality, you've made people homeless. I'm speaking to the people who did the riot. You've made people homeless. You've destroyed people's businesses. And then you use tools and knives and machetes to attack the police. If there was supposed to be a protest, there should have been a protest that Mark Duggan had a gun in the first place. Or that other people in London have been shot. Why have there not been riots about that? Because it's gang culture imported from the United States and other places, and from Jamaica, where the role of somebody who's a nobody who wants to become a big man, well, all those big men, they either end up dead or in prison. So do you want to be a loser? Do you want to lose your life? It does not make any sense. So on one scale it was organised, but on another scale it's just primitive violence. It's primitive opportunistic looting. These people weren't making a political statement. They were simply attacking the very fabric of law and order, which is the basis of England. This is England, our England, and we won't let it be burned down by you vermin. Okay? So, when you talk about, if the BNP or the multiculturalists talk about race in this argument, it's completely wrong, because this was a law and order issue. The police should not be attacked in the streets with petrol bombs, knives and machetes, right? If you want social services, then you'll have to integrate into social democracy. Go and find a book, which might be scary to you if you're one of the rioters watching this, and the fact that you can use a computer or a mobile or Twitter and then organise a riot of such savagery and primitivism is something that disturbs me, right? But there must be solutions to this, and the solution, I'm afraid to say, is quite an authoritarian one for me. As a social democrat, I hate to say it, but these people, if they come to this country or even this continent, as people who have been welcomed from sub-Saharan Africa in Libya, have gone and rioted in Italy, or even to this continent. If you are indigenous or an immigrant, it does not matter. If you break the social contract, you should be deported out to a non-EU country and be forced to live there. So do not break our laws.